Here we have 3 DMR rigs. I've had DMR radios for just under a year now. It's been quite a learning curve for me. I'd operated D-Star beforehand, but DMR is a little different. The programming's a lot more difficult than D-Star, but there's quite a lot of activity on DMR, and I've enjoyed learning about it. But the reason behind this video is to show you a particular problem with one of these rigs. Now, this one here is a Baofeng RD5R. So apologies for the bright yellow case, but it's quite handy for keeping the handheld clean. Now, this is a tier 1 DMR rig. It means it can't be used on repeaters. It transmits on both time slots at the same time. So for a DMR rig to use out and about for repeater use, it's pretty disastrous, but it's fine to use on a simplex hotspot like I have at home. And in fact, the audio that it produces on DMR is perfectly good, and it works fine as a basic analog dual band handheld as well. It's got some limitations on the DMR side, but you know, when it's being used for a contact on DMR, the operator the other side wouldn't know what you were using. It produces perfectly acceptable audio, so that's fine. This one here, the Radio Oddity GD77, is a very nice rig. Again, good audio. It's a true tier 2 rig, so it can be used on repeaters as well as my own hotspot. It works well on analog, and it works well on DMR. And the most recent set that I've had is this Baofeng RD5R. It's got the same case as the DM5R that we saw just a moment ago. In fact, it's the same case as the Baofeng UV5R, the analog, well-known analog handheld. Now, my RD5R, I've had no problems with. I've programmed it up. The software and indeed the firmware seems very similar to the GD77. It's basically made by the same people as far as I know. And the sound quality, whilst not quite as good as the GD77, is perfectly acceptable. Because I reasonably got to grips with this rig, and I've done some programming, as I said, and I've been using it. Another local amateur who had bought one of these has actually given me his RD5R to program, and whilst I did that easily enough, I decided to test it on air, and I found that his RD5R had something of a problem. So I'll just show you what that problem is. It's known basically as motorboating, and I'm sure you'll understand why when you hear it. It does sound like a motorboat engine, but basically the RD5R I've been lent to program has got a very nasty audio problem, and it's not something I come across on my own rig, and it's not something that either this GD77 or this DM5 suffers from. So we'll have a look at a clip of me using both the RD5R that has the fault and my own that doesn't, and you'll hear the audio difference. And just for the purposes of this test, I'm obviously operating simplex, not through a repeater, not through a hotspot, and I've just used this DM5R as a receive rig, and you'll see what the problem is.
Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. 1 2 3. This is the RD5R, which seems to have an audio problem on transmission. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. This is my own RD5R. There seems to be a small, low-level amount of noise on this one, but nothing like the other RD5.
So there you have it. The transceivers are identical. They're both running the same firmware. In fact, they've both been programmed with the same code plug, the channel programming. The owner of the problem rig, which is the one on the left incidentally, has been in touch with the supplier, and the supplier has advised that we upgrade the firmware from the Radio Oddity website. But unfortunately, the latest firmware is on that site has already been imported into this rig. And indeed, I've done the same for my own rig on the right. As I say, they're running the same firmware. So the problem isn't going to be solved by a firmware upgrade. I'd be surprised if it was. It sounds to me like there's RF getting back into the microphone. And the motorboating effect you can hear is, of course, the DMR rig switching on and off, which it does a few times every second. A tier 2 DMR rig will do that. But of course that sound shouldn't be transmitting back into the transmit audio. So well, we'll wait and hope that the owner of this RD5R gets some joy from the supplier, and hopefully gets a replacement transceiver. But in the meantime, I'd be interested if anyone sees this, if they've had a similar problem with their RD5R. Cheers for now. Thank you for watching.